The seventh stage. Well, the time finally came when the pilgrims had to be on their way, and so they prepared for their journey. Before they left, they sent for their friends, talked with them, and trusted each one to the protection of their prince. Those who were able brought items with them, things from their own possessions that were suitable for the weak and the strong, for the women and the men. In this way they equipped the pilgrims with the things necessary for their journey. They also honored us with many marks of respect, and when we were setting sail, they supplied us with all we needed. Acts chapter 28, verse 10. When it came time to leave, they set out and their friends accompanied them for as far as was convenient. Before they said goodbye, they once again committed each other to the protection of their king, and then parted ways. In this manner, the small group of pilgrims set on with great heart, leading the way. Now, the women and children had little physical strength, but pressed on the best they could. Mr. Ready to Halt and Mr. Feeble Mind could sympathize with their condition. Shortly after they were away from the townspeople and their friends, they came to the place where Faithful had been put to death. They stood there and gave thanks to him who enabled him to bear his cross so well. And in addition, they were thankful for how they had benefited from his suffering and example. From there, they went on. As they walked along, they talked about Christian and Faithful, and how Hopeful joined himself to Christian after that Faithful was dead. Now, they came up to the hill Luca, where the silver mine stood, which lured Demas from his pilgrimage. It was the same mine into which some think by-ends fell and perished. The pilgrims recalled these stories and considered all that had happened. When they came to the old pillar of salt monument that stood against the hill Luca, they stood and looked out at the view of Sodom and its stinking lake. There they marveled, just like Christian did when he stood in the same place, thinking about how men of such knowledge and maturity could be so blinded by their own greed as to turn aside here. But as they thought more about it, they understood that nature is often not influenced by the harm others experience, especially when the thing they are looking at is alluring to one with a foolish eye. They went on until they reached the river that rests on the side of the Delectable Mountains. Fine trees lined the banks of this river, and when the leaves of these trees were eaten, they helped prevent gluttony. Here the meadows remained green all year long, and the pilgrims could lie down safely. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. Psalm 23, verse 2. By this riverside in the meadows, there were sheepfolds for sheep, and a house built for the nourishing and raising of those lambs, the babes of women who go on pilgrimage. Also, one was here who was entrusted with them, who had compassion, and in his arm he will gather the lambs and carry them in his bosom. He will gently lead the nursing ewes. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 11. Now, Christiana advised her 4 daughters to place their little ones in the care of this man, so they might be housed, refreshed, assisted, and nourished by these waters, and so none of them would lack in the future. If any of them went astray or were lost, this man would bring them back again. He would also bind up their wounds and strengthen them when sick. I will also raise up shepherds over them, and they will tend them, and they will not be afraid any longer, nor be terrified, nor will any be missing, declares the Lord. Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 4. Here they would never lack food, drink, or clothing. They were kept safe from thieves and robbers, and this man would die before he allowed one of those in his trust to be lost. Besides, here they were guaranteed good instruction and counseling, and they would be taught to walk in right paths, and that, is no insignificant kindness. And here they enjoyed clean waters, pleasant meadows, dainty flowers, and a variety of trees bearing healthy fruit. Not fruit like Matthew ate, which fell over the wall from Beelzebub's garden. This fruit brings about health where there is none, health that continues and increases as long as the fruit is there. So they were happy to commit their little ones into his care. In fact, it was an encouragement to do so, for all of this was under the charge of the king, and there would be no place more hospitable to young children and orphans. Now, they went on and came to By-Path Meadow. They arrived at the stile which Christian crossed over with his fellow traveller, Hopeful. It was here those two pilgrims were taken by giant Despair and put into Doubting Castle. Here the group of pilgrims sat down and talked together about what had happened to Christian and Hopeful here, and what was best for them to do now. For they wondered if now that they were so strong and had such great heart as their guide, if perhaps it would be best to make an attempt on the giant and to demolish his castle. They also thought that if there were any pilgrims being held in the castle, this could be an opportunity to set them free before they journeyed further. As they talked, one said one thing and another said the opposite. One questioned if it was lawful to step upon unconsecrated ground. Another said it might be permitted, as long as the end result was good. But Greatheart said, though that last claim cannot be true in every case, I do have a commandment to resist sin, to overcome evil, and to fight the good fight of faith. I have to ask, with whom should I fight this good fight? If not with giant Despair. I will therefore attempt to take his life and demolish Doubting Castle. Then he asked, who will go with me? Old Honest said, I will, and so will we. Christiana's 4 sons, Matthew, Samuel, Joseph, and James, said, for they were now young men and strong. Writing to you, fathers, because you know him who has been from the beginning. I am writing to you, young men, because you have overcome the evil one. I have written to you, children, because you know the Father. I have written to you, fathers, because you know him who has been from the beginning. I have written to you, young men, because you are strong, and the word of God abides in you, and you have overcome the evil one. 1 John chapter 2, verses 13 and 14. So they left the women at the road, along with them Mr. Feeble-Mind and Mr. Ready to Halt with his crutches. The men were meant to guard the women until the others returned, since the giant Despair lived so near. The plan was for them to stay in the road, for then even a little child could lead them. And the wolf will dwell with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little boy will lead them. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 6. Mr. Greatheart, Old Honest, and the 4 young men headed up to Doubting Castle to look for giant Despair.